Hey guys, Adam here from ZFG Racing. I'm down in the shop today, and today we're going to be covering a new product for us. It's by Dyme PSI, and it's their AN fitting system that uses these really sweet, they call them ProSpec, but they're basically a quick disconnect that matches the SAE quick disconnect fuel lines. So if you just slide them together and they just snap right on. As you can see, I did a couple lines in the Explorer already. I didn't release the video on this yet, but this is actually officially has the built engine swapped in it, built transmission, and some prototype turbos in it. So I'll be getting ready to start this thing up pretty soon. I'm waiting on a couple things. I got to make one change to the transmission real quick, then we'll be ready to fire this thing up, and I'll probably be releasing the video for that shortly after. But yeah, she's ready. We did swap it in about a day and a half of work total. I had a buddy come over and we dropped the engine right out of the bottom and got it right back up in there in one day, and then I just had to go ahead and button up some parts. Got my Houston Speed Freaks GSP charge pipes on. I'm missing my cold section pipe yet, working on that. That's one of the things I'm waiting for. But yeah, other than that, so like I said, today we're going to be going over these fittings in the assembly. I'm doing crimped fittings from here out. I've always kind of hated putting together AN lines that are screwed together just because, I don't know, it bothers me. You never know if you're getting it right unless you mark everything, and you can really screw up the threads on the fittings, and they're really not reusable. You really shouldn't reuse AN fittings, even though they say they're reusable. You can damage the threads and stuff if you're not careful. So I opted to go to a crimp fitting. I purchased a crimper for the shop with the anticipation that I'll probably be able to make some lines for some people locally, and nobody really has a crimper in our area at all. Everybody just uses screw together fittings. So I have the crimper and everything, and then I mounted it to a nice Harbor Freight 27-inch top. Got a solid wood top on it. It's an air driven one. I did look at getting an electric one. They're quite a bit more expensive, and honestly the air over hydraulic works just as good. It's a little bit slower probably than the electric ones, but it'll work for what we're doing. But I have some lines that I have to make for Travis. These are going to be for a project that he has going on. I'm not going to talk about the project because he hasn't released any information on the project. But I got quite a few lines to make, so I'm going to go ahead and make those for you and kind of show you the process and what I've learned so far with these. Alright guys, this video is going to be a little broken up because I made a little mistake with the lines that I originally got from Dyme. Turns out there is actually two types of lines that Dyme has. They have a line that is for their screw together fittings, and then they have a line that is for the crimp fittings. So when I ordered these, I ordered the line for the crimp fittings, but what I got was the line for the screw together fittings. And unfortunately, it's a smaller inside diameter and a smaller outside diameter, which made the fittings really, really hard to assemble. So I shot a whole video on how to assemble these and some tips and tricks for reaming them out, how to use a hose press and how to do all that. And turns out you don't need to do any of that. It was just the wrong line. So eventually, after I got done making all the lines for Travis, I reached out to Dyme and I was like, hey guys, what's going on? These are way too hard to put together. This doesn't seem efficient. What am I doing wrong? Is there a special tool that I'm missing? Is it just me? And we kind of came to the conclusion at the same time that, oh, hey, you have the wrong line. So unfortunate. So I'm breaking this video up a little bit. I did actually notice it once I got to the dash 10. Again, that other line has parallel white lines on it. That is to indicate the screw together type line. And then the dash 10 that I got was from my second order with them, and that's actually got the correct cross lines on it because it is the correct line. So by the time I got to that line, I realized that, you know, it was much easier. So that's the video I'm going to show you on how to put together lines. That'll be this Dash 10. The other thing that I wanted to cover is something that is unique, I feel, to us. You know, in terms of the EcoBoost market, we're not just tuners, or I'm not just a tuner. I'm also trying to develop parts for this platform. As many of you guys know, I'm a mechanical engineer. I still have a day job as a mechanical engineer, but when I first started my engineering career, I was a new product introduction engineer, an NPI engineer, and I did a lot of development on parts and pieces and large-scale projects for the fire protection industry. I have a couple patents in that as well, just for fun, in case anybody's wondering. But you know, those patents, I don't own them, unfortunately. The company owns them, so, and they didn't actually end up, you know, creating any of those products at the end of the day. So anyway, I still like to do a lot of design work. I don't do that in my current engineering job. I have a little bit different role right now, but I like to do, you know, product design for things that we need for the Explorers. So one of the things that we need in order to be able to run a proper big turbo kit is we need special lines and special fittings to be able to adapt to that. As you can see on the engine, you know, they have the oil feed and that coolant return is a very different style of push-in fitting that the factory line has. So I was able to get the 3D models, which I've had for a while. Those are available on SEMA Tech Transfer. But I was able to design a fitting for each of those, you know, little holes, or each of those areas that we need one. So we needed one for the oil feed, oil return, and coolant return. And then the oil, or the coolant feed, is actually just a line that adapts to the ProSpec fitting. So on this fitting, it's pretty much factory on this side and then ProSpec on this side. And I drew these up quick and 3D printed them. So I 3D printed them to be able to test fit on the engine, make sure that everything was okay. And it's a good thing I did, because I didn't realize originally, but this flange is actually, the bolt pattern is actually different depending on what side of the engine you're on, which, good job, Ford. Thanks for doing that for me. So I just slotted it so that we're able to do it. I also made this fitting come apart so that you can turn this in a lathe and still get a really nice finish on the ProSpec part of it. And then just put this in a regular CNC so that you can machine that, and then they just slide together and that holds on like that. And these other fittings are kind of the same as the factory, where they have the tabs. Obviously they have O-rings and stuff that hold them in, or the tabs hold them in, but the O-rings do the sealing. So I got them all 3D printed. I did actually also develop fittings for the turbos themselves. Originally, when I was, you know, putting my built motor together, I wanted to have those fittings switched out. I kind of ran out of time. As you saw in the first clip, the built engine's in the car already. So I ran out of time. I didn't have enough time to get them done, and they're fairly expensive. So these are the first run of the actual fittings that I have as a product. I had 10 sets made. The costly part of having something like this developed is if you want to just do one of these, you still have to pay to set the machine up. So if I wanted just one of these oil feed fittings, you know, you're talking about 150 bucks for that. So, you know, obviously as you buy more quantity, the price goes down. I think I was able to get the cost down to around $25. Now, obviously that's not what I'm going to be selling them for, because I have to make a little money on them as well. You know, I like to try to make about 20%. So these will be for sale on the website. I have 10 sets right now. And like I said, they adapt to the Dyme ProSpec fittings. We will be making lines. If you guys are interested in having us custom make you lines, I will do that. You will have to reach out to sales though, and provide all the measurements and the sizes and everything that you want for us to be able to quote them. There is a little bit of labor in there. It's not too bad. The process is really efficient when you're using the right line with the right fittings. So it won't be too bad. But anyway, so I got all these fittings. set aside for Travis. I got all Travis's hoses done. And in the next clip, I'm going to go through, I believe it's the Dash 10, and how that line goes together and kind of how it's different from, you know, just a standard screw together AN fitting that you guys are probably used to seeing. Like I said, I prefer crimp fittings just because they're, you know, pretty much fail proof on the fitting. There's no real way to screw them up. I mean, you can screw them up and crimp them bad, but you're going to see that. So they're just a better fitting, in my opinion, or a better way of doing business, a lot safer, a lot more reliable. The downside is once you crimp it, you're done, right? You can't reuse that fitting. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll get to the clip of me assembling the line with the meta glasses on. So I still need to figure out some stuff with the meta glasses. I'm trying to get the orientation right and the resolution to the right size that I want to match the GoPro, but we're working through that. You know, like I said, I'm still new to this. I actually shot this clip like 3 times now because my GoPro decided that it wasn't going to recognize the media mod anymore and not record any audio. So I had to fix that. Interesting problems to have when you're trying to do YouTube videos, I guess. Definitely not fun to figure out. But anyway, so like I said, let's get to the clip and I'll catch you guys back here for an outro. All right, guys, so we're going to be making some Dash 10 lines. We already got some 6s and the 4s made up. This is our Dash 10 line that we're going to be using as part of this project. So we got quite a bit of it here. We're going to be doing a Dash 10 Fat Boy in the Dyme on one side, and then their Dyme ProSpec on the other side. And the ProSpec is going to connect to the fittings that we had made for the oil drain lines. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll do the Fat Boy first. So let's get this unwound. Set that on the floor for now. So the way this works is you have a crimp collar and the fitting itself. And the crimp collar just slides on. It is threaded, so you can kind of screw it on there. And you do want to make sure you leave enough room for the crimp to get in this little groove up here. So we're going to go ahead and slide that on. And run it down so we're almost all the way there. And then it looks like we're not even going to need the fitting press with this side or any lube. So that's definitely nice. So yeah, you go ahead and put that in there like that. And then we'll come over to the crimp machine. We're going to have to switch out our dies. I'm actually going to pause so I can go look that up real quick. All right, it looks like we need a 24.9 to 25 millimeter OD crimp on this for our Dash 10 size. So we're going to switch our die out here to our 23 millimeter die from our Dash 4 10 millimeter die here. Switch that out. And the way this works is this has a little indicator on it, little dial indicator that you can basically zero out, and that is going to give you the crimp, like the actual size of the die. So if I leave this zeroed out, it'll give me a 23 millimeter end product. We're obviously looking for a little more than that. So we need to dial in 23 plus 1, 24, and then we'll dial in 25, and we'll go to 25 and a half, just to kind of get us in that mid-range there. So let's take this 60-degree fitting that we got all set up. Go ahead and insert that in there. Now you do need to lubricate the die, and I have plenty on there right now. It does come with, the D100 does come with the die lube. Go ahead and back this off real quick. And I just kind of set it in there, get everything the way that I want, and then slide it down so that we have a nice, even, straight crimp. It is possible to kind of get these a little crooked. Don't want to do that, obviously. So we're going to go ahead and run this down with our air. That's going to take a minute because I backed it all the way off. We go until we turn the light on. Then we go ahead and back it off. I'm not going to back it off as far this time, so that the next one that we do will be a little bit faster, ideally. Go ahead and pop the die out and slide it out of the bottom. So now, in order to check our crimps, we need to come over here with our dial indicator, or digital caliper, sorry. And just go ahead and measure the smallest parts of the crimp. And it looks like we're sitting right at 25. And remember, our range needed to be 24.9 to 25.4. So we should be good on these. And then that'll be very repeatable. So yeah, that's how you do the hose. Now for cutting the hose, what I do is this hose needs to be... All right, so we got our one side done, and we're going to go ahead and cut this line for the other side. We're looking for 23 inches out of this. So I'm going to go ahead and hold 23 inches right there, and then take medical tape or hockey tape, works good, and just go ahead and wrap that around one time. And this is just going to hold everything together while we cut it. Cutting wise, we're just using a regular diamond cutoff wheel in our regular angle grinder. I do plan on getting a little better setup for that with an actual chop saw dedicated to these fittings, but I didn't have time to get that just yet. So we'll go ahead and open this way up. So I'm just using my press to hold. And this is just going to give me a nice straighter cut than trying to hold it in your hand and cut it off. So like I said, not really the preferred method for doing it, but it gets the job done. So we're going to come back here, set this hose down in here. Going to give ourselves a little purge here to get all the debris out of there. Alright, nice straight cut, no debris. Now on this side we're going to be using a Dyme ProSpec fitting. So this is their Fatboy series, which is a regular screw-on AN, and then the ProSpec is the quick lock. So we got our ProSpec fitting over here. Again, same process. Get rid of our white tape here, that's stopping everything from fraying. Go ahead and screw this on. I'm going to run it all the way down so that we get it nice and straight. And then back it off a little bit so the groove has somewhere to go. And that's just backing off enough to get this little pinch groove, a little lip in there. That looks about right. Go ahead and slide those together. Drop it back in the machine. Top collar. Again, we're going to kind of push down on it to hold it. Slide our slider. Go ahead and make sure that this is nice and level, and run the crimper down. Turn our light on. Collar out. All right, so there we have it. We got one complete line, drain line. Just gonna go ahead and double check. We're sitting at 25.2, perfect. So that's really all there is to it. Like I said, this is a newer product for us, this Dyme ProSpec, but I'm really excited about it. I think it is a great product, and it's really going to allow for fast assembly and disassembly in some tight spots. You know, with the traditional AN fittings, you really got to get a wrench in there and turn it on, and these are just, they just snap right on. So super excited about that. Gonna go ahead and finish up these lines and get them over to Travis. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I'm going to go ahead and get these boxed up and shipped out to Travis. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay tuned.